So everyone's looking at me. So I'm the host of today.
You're the media now.
All right, I'm the media. Well, I'm not sure if that's a good thing, but
no, we got some exciting stuff this week. Kenny actually took the time to go to the website of DOGE.gov. I think it's an exciting thing because Doge is basically .gov is basically the database where every action of Doge is being published, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So last week I was at work actually, and my good friend and co-founder said to me, like, "Did you check the Doge.gov website?" And I didn't, and I think a lot of people haven't. Even Damian, you didn't have a look.
The biggest proponent, supporter of Doge.
Of Doge, he's been selling it for a couple of months now, but hasn't been on the website. So we thought it's good just to walk through, get some live results. I know Florian, you've been through the website as well, so maybe you can give us some quick highlights on what you've seen and what you thought about it when you checked it out for the first time.
Right now?
Yeah?
No idea.
No idea. But you have checked it out, right?
Yeah, but that was like 6 days ago, and I have a lot of ADHD. So
oh, really? We didn't know. So that's helpful.
I have no idea, but it was horrific. Just I can remember my emotions. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, the waste in the amount of dollars, and I mean I don't have a real example right now. I normally tweet those kinds of things, and is my second brain, and there's where you find the answer, but not in my brain at this moment yet.
No, but I think high over last week we saw an interview of Elon and Senator Cruz, where Elon announced that they have a run rate of 1 trillion in savings by October 25. So that is sort of high over. I think the total government spend in the US is about 7 trillion. So this will be a saving of ballpark 15-ish%, which is just, I think, the first sort of just waste and fraud that were being found. So high over what the findings of Elon for so far, because he's just 1 month in, right? It's actually a very recent thing that they're working on Doge, is that of that 1 trillion, 80% is waste. So we can think of, for example, software licenses that are not being used. So there was an example of 15,000 employees while having 30,000 software licenses.
And 20,000 credit cards with a limit of 10,000 per credit card.
Yeah, so that will be considered waste, right? So 80% of that is waste, 20% is fraud, which is actually incredible amount of money, right? Because we're talking about 200 billion already in fraud being identified. But I think it doesn't, the next step will not be just canceling things, but I'm also very curious about if they can identify fraud, if they go after the money to get their money back, for example, to lavish salaries that has been being paid, or just grants that were being given, or people that have been collecting Social Security while they were dead. I'm very curious if they, for example, need to pay them back.
I think there were like 3,000 people who were already dead.
And
3 million.
3 million.
Yeah,
3 million.
Elon posted on X about this, I think today, that they found the dead people.
That's actually something that's on the Doge.gov. So we'll dive into it a bit more. I think what was also an important point, Damian, in the Ted Cruz interview was about the NGOs.
Yeah.
So basically he said there's a lot of money going to NGOs, which are non-profits, non-governmental organizations.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're non-profit.
Okay, but anyways, they're not...
The literal meaning of NGO is non-government organization.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and he said within those organizations, there's a lot of spending of like big houses, cars, trips, etc., which don't have to be necessarily audited.
Nope.
So my background is as an auditor. So I'm in Holland a registered auditor, actually. So I've done quite a lot of audits myself, which I think is a good thing in itself. But it actually ensures that there is a way to have accountability for different people, you know? So in this case, that actually doesn't happen. So where it comes down to is money is being sent to those organizations but it doesn't get checked. So we have a new guest here in the house.
We have a new guest in our
A new
podcast.
guest.
What's her name?
What's her
Joy.
name? Yeah.
Joy.
That's my
Joy
daughter,
Joy is scuba diving right now.
and she has a new scuba diving mask.
That was actually your mask, wasn't it?
Hi there, Mrs.
Hey.
Scuba Diver.
I know she watches a lot of YouTube. So you're on YouTube now, Joy. Do you like it?
Well, I actually bought this mask for Kenny for this episode, but
It didn't fit
didn't fit. No, exactly.
because you got the own measurements
Same
from your
color,
face,
or-
right? So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it suits him. So it suits his skin tone.
yeah.
Yeah.
So now we have had every family member now. The dog.
The dog,
Yeah.
my daughter.
Yeah, and now it's time for the 5 mistresses to just appear.
Shit, the door went. Shit, I go.
Okay, so Damian is going out to help out here with his daughter. But before we dive into Doge, Kees, have you seen Doge, like the DOGE.gov? Did you ever visit it or?
No, but I did visit the X page quite frequently. But I haven't checked the website. No, not yet.
Okay. So, let's go to the website, and we have it here on the screen while Damian is jumping back on the microphone again. So, right in time to have a look at the Doge.gov. So, once you go here, the first thing you actually see is all the X feed. So we just discussed it, but this is the tweet and the X post that they have on their X account, and the last one is showing up here as the first one. So they said in the last 2 weeks, Social Security has begun a major cleanup of their records. Approximately 3.2 million number holders, all listed age above 120 years old,
Insane.
have now been marked as deceased. More work still be done. So he's actually sharing here like how many deceased people are off this list. So I'm not sure. Does any one of you know where it's actually been related to? Is it like Social Security that those people still receive, or?
I think that is to be found out, but basically what it is just one giant database that is missing a lot of information. So they need to retrofit all the information that they're receiving, because a lot of basic labels are simply not being given into those databases.
Yeah.
So we're not sure yet if there was also money sent to these accounts.
There is money sent, but probably not to all the 3 million people.
Okay.
But a significant number of people that have already died are still receiving Social Security, which I think sort of before we go much more into detail, I think this is also the new way how government is going to work, with full transparency, with every dollar that is being spent as tax is being accounted for, right? That sounds like a very basic thing. But as it is right now, it's just like, okay, we have one big pile of, let's say, 7 trillion. But for 2 trillion or 3 trillion, there's no there's no accounting for. So there's no transparency where that whole money goes. And everybody knows, as we say in Dutch, de gelegenheid maakt de dief. That basically says the opportunity that arise also creates theft, right? So if it's very easy to avoid certain checks, or just simply apply for a credit card as a government worker and add your spend on that, and it's not very clear where it all goes. Also, I think well-intended people will start making use of those kind of services. So on the one hand, this sunlight that you get from just exposing bills that are being published is one of the best medicines for people to avoid fraud, because now it's all out in the open and people can
see it, can
it.
read it,
Yeah.
can read the reasons why.
Funny extra addition. I just checked the website DOGE.gov and checked the visits over time. In December, this of course wasn't yet like fully out in the open. 2.9K, so 2,900 monthly visits. January 2025, 1.3 million. What do you think the number is February 2025?
I would say 10 million plus.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, 14.2 million.
Yeah.
Visits.
Yeah,
Visits,
unique
Yeah.
monthly
So
visits.
we have about 350 million US citizens, global citizens. So it's still very minor, I
Yep.
think. 14 million visitors. But more and more, the more DOGE is working, the more there will be exposed. Can you go to the website again to highlight what the things are that are being published there?
Yeah, a little bit of patience would be good. So what I did is I just clicked on some expos that are on the first page of the DOGE.gov.
Yeah.
You're getting redirected to X here. But it actually shows like, all right, there are some updates. So this is a contract update, which I'm reading out loud. So today, agencies terminated 44 contracts with a ceiling value of 5.2 billion and savings of 640 million, including 465K for a contract which has the description non-personal services to serve as the Maxwell Air Force Base installations
Horticulturalist. What the fuck?
That's what he said. Landscape designer and greenhouse plant nursery manager to improve and maintain beautification of the installations.
Wow.
And then the second one is 2.85 million contract for digital communications and social media support services. Like, how vague can you get it? So here actually also...
This reminds you of that example Elon gave last week, that it was like a plant business hired for one office.
Yeah.
And they had put on a sign, don't water the plants. This is being managed by Huppele, the name of the company. And the contract of that company was around $1,000 per plant per month to water the plants. It's like insane.
Where do you think the biggest saving? There are like many like crazy examples, right? Like this, and there are many very logical things, like just not paying for software that you don't use, which in the normal business would be part of the normal, let's say, quarterly hygiene routine, right? Something like that. But where do you think the biggest waste is at this moment?
Is it maybe like paying rent for unused
Buildings. Yeah. So I heard that some buildings are not being used that are costing like a $250 billion in rent on a yearly base. So a lot of these buildings are just simply not being used anymore or misused because people are working from home, etc. So now they got back in office, and basically a lot of those buildings are obsolete. But the government is a big owner of a lot of real estate, of course. Also real estate that just needs to maintain, because historical buildings and whatnot that can have maybe commercial purposes. But is there also an overview on the DOGE side where you can see savings by category?
Yeah, so let's go there. So if you go to the top of the website, you can see here, you can have a couple of subtopics. So you can go to savings, payments, spend, workforce, regulations, and the last one is to join. Let's start with the first one. It's the savings. So this is it gives you a summary. So it actually says that the estimated services of savings are 115 billion, and they also calculated that is around $715 per taxpayer.
Wow.
Yeah.
And all of the time...
what is being labeled as savings? Because Elon talked about being at a trillion run rate already.
Yeah, it says here a combination of asset sales, contract lease cancellations and renegotiations, fraud and improper payment deletion, grant cancellation, interest savings, programmatic changes, regulatory savings, and workforce reductions.
Yeah. And then it says we are working to upload all of the receipts in a digestible and transparent manner consistent with applicable rules and regulations. To get started, listed below are a subset of contract, grant, and lease cancellations, representing around 30% of the total savings.
Before we go further, like $150 billion, that's a big amount. And whenever I see Trump speaking and you hear him talking about like billions and billions and billions of dollars, like it sounds so weird and out of touch that he's like billions and billions, but it is in fact billions and billions and billions of dollars being saved here. Insane. Okay.
So
reality check.
Let's see what we can see next. So they say that it's being updated every week. And then they actually have a leaderboard. So they're tracking who's the leader in most of the savings and least of the savings, to be honest. So that's also what it shows. So most savings are in the general services and administration. Maybe we need to click on it and see what happens. You cannot.
It's not clickable.
No, you cannot select it. Maybe that will be some of
and
the...
those savings, agency savings are general service administration, Department of Education. So those are agencies within the government.
Yeah, so they're all government departments.
Yeah.
Everything with a D in it is a department.
Yeah.
And then you have also like the agency, like the EPA.
So, for example, one of the concerns that many people have, for example, right, if they see, okay, Department of Education, there's now a lot of savings being made there. Is there a way to see what kind of savings those are? Because, for example, one of the critiques that you have on DOGE is that people are afraid that just services that are valuable are being deleted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You actually never hear argument of what exactly, but it's always like more generalistic.
Yeah, well, I think there was an actual example. So what I always try to do is I'll try to get some pros and cons, and I actually saw someone, which again I didn't see any proof, but they fired like a whole department, or they said it's like not needed anymore. Mm-hmm. But they actually got scientists who work on like nuclear energy and stuff, so they hired it back. And I think what Elon said is like, we'll delete too much, but we have to correct our mistakes very quickly. Yep. So I think that's what they're trying to do. So there will be some harm. But any specifics on it or any website like this, I haven't seen yet.
So the total amount, if you sort of look at those big numbers, so right now there's being savings of 115 billion, which is about 750 euros for each citizen. If we are already at a run rate of 1 trillion, that's then already 7,000 per citizen, right? So 7,000 x 7 billion, 7 trillion is the total amount spent. We're talking about $35,000 of average tax spent per US citizen.
On an annual basis. Annual basis or monthly?
On an annual basis. Yeah. So we talk about roughly 35,000. 35,000.
There's the other family member.
Yeah.
there's
slowly
now
going down.
for everyone who's listening, dog is trying to break in.
And this is like the messiest recording that we've done up until now. So
and don't forget, we actually had an episode now with CERN, which didn't work out quite well as well.
Yeah, so. For all the people tuning in, we tried to have a deep dive with CERN for Robotaxi, as you might have known from our previous episodes, but it gave us such a headache trying to get this call up and running. So we almost, lost our minds collectively here.
So, the next thing here on the website is the wall of receipts. So you can actually select like all the receipts that are in the system. You can also really go into like the system. So they have an ERP system, administration system, basically at the government, and they show you the printouts of those things. So you can actually see in the system of the government. So you can see total value of all the receipts, and you can also go to savings. So we see, for example, some savings here on subscription, 60,000 euros for Politico Pro. There's an FT subscription, that's the Financial Times, 130k, and you can actually like have a look at them all. Then the website gets really big. So you have travel support services, 2.4 million, executive coaching, 1.9, integrated marketing support. You can also see who's doing that. So it's Crosby Marketing Communications Inc. So you can actually Google like which company is it, what do they do? And if you
can you Google it? Just
sure,
to see what comes up.
Yeah, no worries.
Sorry, Elon, we're not using Grok.
Perplexity, it just gives an explanation of like what they do, who they are.
these kind of things are, from my point of view, also can be like borderline fraud cases, right? If you, for example, you're a government contractor and your family is running a marketing agency or service, those kind of those kind of spends are also very fake. If you ask me, or services that are not very well defined that are being labeled on.
But there can also be, for example, what you see in the Netherlands is that they're recruiting people to work at the government, and they display ads for that as well, right? So there can also be people who help the government with that, which could be spent.
No, but the point that I'm making is that it's not always a clear-cut fraud case. Like if you say of that 1 trillion, if 80% is waste and 20% is fraud. But as Elon also said in his interview with Senator Cruz, is that there are a lot of gray areas and a lot of undefined areas, right? So, for example, if you hire your spouse or your family members for a lofty contract, which I know is the case with a lot of. In the past, I used to work for some NGOs there as well, and I know that there's a lot of favoritism in handing certain contracts to people that you already know. You have to deliver a service for it. That's something that is real, but it's not really a competitive process as you.
Yeah, so you're trying effectively saying that's cronyism, so crony capital, so cronyism, but then very well hidden.
Yeah, and in what case would you define something like that as fraud, right?
It like now you're talking that it is not good, but there's also good marketing spent.
Yeah, of course.
That's also the point that I'm trying to make. So yes, it could be, but that's why you have, in a normal organization, you have controls, right? So you have like the 4I principles, so people review each other, etc. So you cannot always...
Yeah, but for example, you highlight now this marketing service that is being cancelled, right? So is there also a reason why it is cancelled, or is just it's just like determined? And
when you're looking that up, it's a really good point that you're putting out there, Kenny, because the only way to find out what is necessary and unnecessary is like cutting everything, and then you'll find out quick enough or soon enough that it's actually essential. So you just rehire. That's the same that Elon did with X, right? Cutting a lot of waste. Those were essential hires, rehire. Or otherwise hire a new person.
Wow, you can actually... So this is actually in the system. I thought it was a print screen. So here, notice of... so you can... Wow. So you can actually see everything. So... This shows in their ERP system the contract, the amount, counterparty, where it is situated, etc. And then here down, it shows notice of termination for convenience, integrated marketing support for the Office of Customer Education and Outreach.
Yeah.
Integrated marketing support for the Office of Customer Education and Outreach. I think because it's too vague. I don't know.
No, so some things like if you determine a contract of Financial Times, for example, you say, okay, well, is this actually being used? Are people logging in? No, okay, delete. But these are sort of services that are not very clear, where like support management advertising. So it's a marketing company, a contract of 2.5 million, correct me if I'm wrong.
1.4, yeah.
1.4 million.
I think it's just discontinued because it's like if you have an own company, when you go through the operating expenses, you see a marketing budget and you ask your team, hey, why is it spent? And nobody can give you an answer. You just terminate.
That must be then.
Yeah, well, but it is actually interesting that we are discussing this, how this normally works in a company,
Yeah.
How would this work within Tesla? Do you think that there is somebody who's actually sitting together with somebody else and they are actually going through the ERP system?
Yeah. I think they do every month or every quarter.
I think it's a little bit more... I think AI is having a big role in this. There are algorithms actually making the decision whether it should be...
Yeah. But at some point you need validation, right? And I can remember those kind of things because I worked with Kenny for a long time, and he just comes with a list of expenses. You check with your core team members that can do things. Sorry,
we got an intruder again.
Yeah, the slime. Like now
the slime needs to open.
Yeah, we need Daddy for that.
Daddy daycare here. Thank you, Doge. Any input? No.
So you go through the expenses and you normally ask the team leads, right? So
well, you clean up ship, you know. So when a new contract gets in, and maybe if I'm working for you, Damian, together with Florian, and we have this good marketing guy or marketing party, which we think is awesome. We give him a budget of €2,000 a month.
Yeah.
A year later, he's still on that budget, but we've left because Aruba's waiting, and we need a break, you know. So we're gone. And the contract still goes on. Then you sit with your new team, you go through the expenses, and you're like, hey, this is the budget, or these are the expenses.
Are we aware that the expenses are this high? And
exactly.
Yeah, but I understand that. But I do think there is a little bit more sophistication to this than just two people sitting together.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they will not have this kind of speed of
definitely
getting...
not.
And this is actually showing... the role of AI and computers, and that's what Elon also explains.
That's why I gotta have Elon.
If we didn't have this into our at our disposal, we couldn't be able to actually get into this weed and into these details
and execute this.
So he also explains very good in this Ted Cruz interview that actually democracy is people deciding upon, okay, this is what we're going to spend. And the next step is we're going to give it to the computer to actually do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the computer...
And then the computer is doing it, but there is no checks and balances anymore, whether the computer is still doing it.
And that's the dangerous part of it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So he also says there are like 14 computers which are unidentified. They have no idea what they are doing, but they are spending money.
Just paying all the time.
They're paying.
No, I think that his point was... those computers have unlimited capital. They can just send money out of thin air.
Yeah, so it's if they are creating money.
Magic money computers.
Just a sidestep. Where can we find that computer?
Yeah, exactly. We need one.
We need one at our office. Well, if you have enough of those computers, you don't need to worry about the computer who is actually looking after the expenses.
But you're creating a lot of inflation.
That's the money tree that my parents were always talking about.
So it does exist.
Yeah.
Hey, but I know. So Florian has had a ADHD attack, so we only have 15 minutes left. So I want to keep it a little bit on. But
you're like SNL, like, oh, I'm glitching.
So I came through another contract, which is also being listed as a saving.
Yeah.
The contract total is 9.9 million. And it's actually training support. So psychological safety, which has been terminated. So it's for the Neuro Leadership Institute. It's 9,999,999 euros. I think they had to stay below a certain limit.
Wonderful.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
So back at the time when I was an auditor, these were red flags.
Definitely.
If you have those kind of like round numbers, etc. So, but let's dive in it because it's also in the system.
Yeah. Too big of a coincidence. Yeah.
So it stated where it was for. So it was for training. There's not a lot of reason on like why they had to stop it, but I think it's just like, all right, why are we having this contract? Well, it's training support for psychological safety. Let's terminate that. But
can you Google that website?
Yeah, sure.
What do you want to say, Florian?
No, but
Kenny, is this the wet dream of an auditor?
Yeah.
You see it in his eyes, right?
Yeah. This is like you have direct.
Well, when you're an auditor, you don't look for fraud necessarily, but you look if the numbers are correctly stated, and if there is no red flags. You know, so we would do data analysis and that kind of stuff. But you would always be looking like, are there any strange things? And you have red flags, you know, you're being trained to identify them. So
and also to
make so if you are being able to be trained, there is also be this algorithm which will be able to be trained to search for these red flags.
That's why you gotta have like some people within this government who actually knows their shit about algorithms.
Can you go to company who's behind this in this company? Because this is like a giant DEI thing, right? If you look at the thing, No, but
So you can all like you can see the people, so you can see the founder, etc. through LinkedIn, of course.
Hey there, Becky. Hey, Jason.
And then this is the website. So webinar series, the right way to increase psych safety today. So psychological safety is not a warm and fuzzy, and yet it is critical for organizations to thrive in an uncertain future.
Oh.
An environment that enables individuals to take risks, experiment, and fail without fear of repercussions. Psychological safety paves the way for innovation. In fact, psychological safety is thought of as the soil that fosters the seed of inclusion to grow.
Holy fuck, this is made for special little snowflakes. Holy shit.
No, but I understand this. This is actually, this is not crazy for me. Why are you offended about?
I'm not offended, and not at all. But like, this is in the same vein of like people online not having to worry about bad comments. It's like we can do everything in inclusion. Everybody has their opinions, and we need to take care of every little snowflake here.
But what do you think then? So they terminated this contract.
Mm-hmm.
10 million.
10 million. Well, so you say I understand
this could be legit to have a contract with such a company to actually.
Yeah, the contract in itself might be legit, but like,
but also the service is legit.
Yeah.
For me, this is not.
Okay, so why do you think? So if this were your tax dollars, you were okay with it, or?
If it would be coupled to some having some people where it's been applied to and getting better, why not?
Okay, in essence, like this, being able to fail without the fear of repercussions, that's a good ideal. Like, you know, like that will foster innovation. So it's not at all like that I'm completely dismissing this, but...
You have no idea for how many persons this is.
No, exactly.
Maybe it's only 500 euro per person. So then it's like a second...
yeah, but I don't believe it should be like the government's responsibility to create a warm and fuzzy psychological safe space for everyone. Like the world is a tough place, and the human race has developed on.
No, but I think this is a bad example for saying this is completely not legit.
True that.
But but this is a good example, you know. So it's something we just picked out of the website.
Yeah.
They terminated, and
the four of us cannot agree.
You say I wouldn't spend it on, and you say, well, if it's 500 euros. So with a little bit of context, you might say it's.
We should have to learn how they decided upon this and who and what and which algorithm.
Yeah, but that said, I think
there's not enough context for me.
No, but I think in general, let's say when you want to run let's say a tight ship, so you want to have an efficient organization.
These are the first things that go out.
There's a lot of, I don't say it's invaluable, but there's a lot of sort of fluff services that sort of leadership coaching.
Of course,
and those can on itself can become perks on itself, right? So if you have, let's say, a leadership offsite every month, would you agree that happens in your company, for example?
Yeah,
right?
In good times, it's perfect. But I understand where you're coming from. We're in bad times. We need to save the ship. What are we going to cancel first?
Or at least we are in times where we want to become more efficient. And it's also like, it's normally if you do this in companies, right? And you ask like, okay, listen, department number A, Florian, you're running this department. We want to be 20% more efficient, and we think we can accomplish that with just our spend. Can you have a look at these bills? And I say, oh yeah, this leadership thing, this, you know, we're using it, but not that often. And you cut those kind of stuff.
No, I mean,
more easy than sort of essential.
I've been through this the last 12 months with Mr. Green. I mean, we had to cut a lot of things.
Yeah,
and indeed, these kind of things were on the most easiest to cut.
Yeah, sort of nice to have.
As long as you have a discussion with your people about it as well. And that's why I'm saying the service itself, I don't see any problems with it. Not immediate problems, but if it's put in context as you do right now, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's also I think the context from Damian is good. You know, we're now in an era where we say, all right, we need to cut it to the bone. So there might be some discussion, but still, if you have a whole country to run, there might be 150 million in the US in this case who say I'm for, and then 150 I'm against. So.
Yeah, no, but in the end, it's the departments, once they are efficient, they need to run within a certain budget, right? You don't know if they're out of budget or what the spend of that total agency is. But the thing is, these kind of organizations are also, if you talk about cases where fraud is very a thin line. Right. So if you say 20% is being identified as fraud, but if you can say like, okay, Florian, we're going to hand your company a grant of 10 million where you need to come for neurological service for our people, and it's not being used in a proper way. So I think these kind of things also open the door for a lot of so sort of when becomes inefficiency becomes fraud, and I think that's very unclear that you want to.
But I think you're already going a step forward. Yeah. There's also a step where I say, where do we think it's dollar well spent, and where do we think it's waste?
Yes.
So in my opinion, this is waste. In my opinion, and maybe like at Google, they will do like kinds of trainings, and they will give you yoga lessons, and I don't know what. But if I spend my tax dollars in the Netherlands, you pay for your own yoga. You don't pay it from the tax dollars.
Yeah, I think that's a discussion worth having.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, otherwise it would be the company that would be spending that for its own employees to improve the employees' welfare.
Yeah, in my opinion, that's maybe also how I'm being raised and how I'm running my own company. But I think a lot of it is just like we don't waste the euro basically.
Yeah.
And people want to have maybe some training or whatever, and we just cut back on it.
Yeah. So. And coming back on that 80-20%, it's actually very good that 80% of it is waste and not fraud. So like then +1 for humanity, that it's not a fraudulent pile of shit, but it's mostly waste and people not paying attention. So the fact that this... comes
hey
up.
Guys,
but 200 billion is very significant.
It's good to have, because this is the kind of discussion you can have around it. But let's go back to the website of DOGE.gov. So you can see all the receipts that are in the system. So there's here change management, subscriptions, strategic programs. I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff. And you can also see. You can click on it and you can see the savings. So here there's no savings. They just continued with it, but. So there's all this kind of stuff. I think this is actually all terminated, to be honest.
Tableau licenses, nice.
Because it says like total contract. So this is with Deloitte. Hey, it's my former employer. There's no savings, but I'm not sure if it's what does it show. So it shows. Oh, it's also terminated. So I think it's all terminated.
Yeah, but that then probably kicks in the future as savings, right? So those are not direct savings.
Exactly.
But that is the 1 trillion that is being identified by Elon.
Got it.
Policy program management support. Well, it's quite vague, but okay. So these are actually all the savings or terminated contracts. You can see them all in. Then there's grants. So you can also see all the grants, but it doesn't have a lot of...
Here's a real estate
detail. Yeah, but it just shows like, hey, there's a grant and there's savings.
What is a grant exactly?
I think a grant is
a burs.
Yeah, exactly. So you can give a grant to a certain institution.
Yeah, so it's like a scholarship grant. Then now they're giving out government grants to the Department of Education, for instance.
Yeah, and here you see US aid. So there's a lot of money here, 11 million, 15, 28, I don't know. All US aid, and then I think 28 million is the contract that's being terminated. And then they saved 9.8 because I think that was still then to spend or something.
Yeah.
That's also very cunning that they decided to name it US aid, whilst it's not like aid as in real aid, but it's all meant for international development, similar to like World Bank and IMF, and we all know how that went.
Yeah, so here you can say also real estate savings. Wow. So this is what
almost 800 lease terminations totaling 10 million square feet. Okay, can you go back to that overview there? 500 million in lease savings. That's enormous.
But it's still, so it says which department it is for, the lease cost, and then also the savings. But it doesn't really explain like why it's being saved or whatever. So
I was
it's actually a lot of fun to be an auditor, Kenny. I always thought it was a boring job. But
well, I said it
job.
like if I could be in the US and help them audit, I would do it. Actually do it for free.
What was your question, Florian?
Well, it reminds me of the context that we're looking at. I mean, we're looking at the expenses of the government of the US, and the expenses are higher than the income.
Yeah.
So we need to get the expenses lower in order to get like a balanced budget.
Yeah.
No?
Can you go to
If I can explain what I'm trying to say is that the reason that they're actually cutting all these expenses is otherwise they have to borrow money from other.
It's a good point.
And I saw a picture that from the debt right now, there's like 15% of that or 10% is actually borrowed by China. So
Borrowed from
China, sorry. So lent from China.
Yeah.
And they have to pay interest for that. So the interest is actually going to China. Mm-hmm. So the interest is also an expense.
Yeah.
And that interest is actually increasing every year. Yeah. And it's increasing by that much that it's uncontrollable anymore. So that's the reason that they are cutting expenses.
Exactly.
And somebody showed on that picture as well, that was very lively for me. It was like, on the interest, nobody knows and nobody has a say on what China is going to do with the income from that interest. So you have a say.
I know what they do
in a certain way through this site. Okay, I am with, or as we were discussing right now, are we in or out of this expense? But on interest, we don't even have. There is nobody who is having a say. You have to pay it.
Yeah, of course.
And those payments, they are being spent on you don't know what. Maybe on drones to attack US.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah, or China's buying a lot of companies. It's also a discussion point in the Netherlands, right?
Exactly.
They buy critical infrastructure companies. So they're just putting it to work in a much more efficient way than we are doing now.
So it's either cutting expenses on
good point,
simple things, or it's paying even more interest.
Yeah, but I think the point you're saying, and maybe Damian wanted to say that at the beginning as well, but you're basically running a company which is in distress. Yeah, debt is too high. You cannot actually pay for all of the things you want to do. So you have to cut on like all the nice trainings, all the yoga, all the lunches, but also all the marketing presentations that are nice for the company to have, or.
Yeah, and I think
so the company is not doing good anymore. So La La Land is out, and we are on a ship where we have to really be tough and get back to business. And
or just not fully used. So, for example, when Elon was at Twitter, there was a whole canteen with chefs and employees that could make food for everybody, but there were people not showing up at the office. So why then having 10 chefs on your payroll that are cooking food every day? If you calculate that to lunch cost, you can better say, well, you get a voucher for a restaurant that you can eat. So it doesn't always have to be that luxuries are being cut off, but just being evaluated.
Just common sense. Yeah.
Like, are we doing well? And
the CEO is coming in.
Yeah, and I think it's it reminds me of when we started talking on Doge. That this whole Doge thing is actually a flywheel.
So you're now our little Elon here with X.
We don't have money anymore, Joy. We're bankrupt.
And now she's saying, "I'm the president now."
Yeah, I'm the president. I'm the boss. I'm the boss. You got to say this,
Donald.
So there's a flywheel of, let's say, 5 things, right? This is stage 1 of Doge. And stage 1 is tax savings. That's an obvious thing. So if you have 1 trillion in savings, that's 7,000 euros as a citizen. Mm-hmm. So step number 1, tax savings. That's good for the people. Second is deregulation. So the complexities of all these things that you're cutting, the more you cut in your business, the less complex your business is going to become, because you simply have to manage less, right? But also a lot of regulations will be cut. Therefore, you need less people to actually do that work. So this will massively free up people and businesses, because they have to spend less on all the lawyers, etc., that are being involved for regulation. So deregulation will sort of be the second accelerator of DOGE. Third accelerator of DOGE is that your employees that are now starting to doing other work are suddenly becoming much more useful for as Elon said, they will work with a better operating system. It's like having a new computer, right? You have an old computer that takes 20 minutes to start up, etc., and now suddenly you have a fast computer, so you can do more work, you can get more done, therefore be more useful for the rest of your citizens, or maybe move to the private sector where they have a shortage of employees. So let's say Mr. Green looks for operators for their robotaxi fleet, right? Now you need people, so it's great that those people will start doing more useful things. At scale, that means a lot, I think. If you have like 500,000 of employees that can suddenly do more useful work, that's a huge jump in efficiency that you then make. Point number 4, where it is going to accelerate, if you keep more money in your pocket, because you pay less tax, and there's not so much regulation, it becomes suddenly very attractive to become an entrepreneur or start investing in the US, right? So a lot of companies that, for example, are, let's stay close to Tesla, are doing lithium refinery. Right now, it takes 10 years to open a lithium refinery manufacturing plant. So that's almost 10 years that it takes to get that started. What would you do if your business would take 10 years to open up something in the US? It's simple. You say, I'm not going to open that because 10 years is just way too long. And then in Europe, it's actually the same for sort of complex manufacturing buildings, etc., because it takes so much time to get that approved. But if that suddenly...
As we witnessed with the opening of the Giga Berlin factory.
Yeah, as we witnessed there. But if that suddenly becomes like 2 months, 3 months, 4 months approval period, so that will make it massively attractive to start investing in the US or to become an entrepreneur in the US, because you keep more money in your pocket and you assure that you're not too much being bothered by regulation. So I think that's going to be another accelerator. And number 5, as one of the other accelerators, is that if that money is being spent wisely at the point, so let's say in the Netherlands we have a fantastic infrastructure. So apparently there's enough money being deployed on highways, etc. But just the average highway in the US has potholes, there are road signs missing, so the infrastructure is not well. What would you do if you run a fleet of, let's say, semi-trucks and you have repair cost of tires as one of the big things? You will not invest more into infrastructure there because it's needed. So I think that the benefits of those are so enormous that phase number 1 will be just savings, and maybe they can get up to 1.5 trillion, 2 trillion. And I think there's still a lot that can be saved. So, for example, you ask, how is Elon doing this by Tesla? Well, he actually revealed that in his book. Because what they do is with every material they have for the car, from screws to touchscreen to steering wheel, etc., they will evaluate like, how much are we paying for this material? Okay, this is a plug. What can this plug cost?
The idiot index.
Idiot tax. That's the thing that Elon talked about in his book. So
the idiot index. So it basically says the raw materials cost you 100 to make a steering wheel, and And if it costs us 200, there's an idiot index of like 2x because you pay 2x to make it. So
Gotta love this, right?
Yeah. But the idiot index or idiot tax is for some things just like, okay, if you're paying $5 for this block, and you know, okay, you can probably produce it for 70 cents or 60, 70 cents, right? But that is those are small things. But in with certain government contracts, you pay.
Yeah, but that's also exactly what I'm trying to say. Is that it's already very difficult with normal people to actually be this aware of cost within a company because they don't have the information. So how do you expect a government to have this kind of culture or this kind of idiot index kind of way of thinking?
Yeah,
Well,
very
so
valid point.
I think
I'm 100% sure that Tesla works. How many different kind of suppliers do they have?
So
It's an immense database.
Yeah, I know, but I think it all comes down to accountability, you know. So Damien and I have had a lot of conversations about it. We pay kind of a lot of taxes, here in the Netherlands, which I'm totally fine, but I don't know where it is spent actually. If somebody asks me like, how much did you pay last year? I can say what I paid and what I got back from it. Well, okay, the roads are nice, etc. But where did it actually go? And I think that's what they want to do here. So also to bring it back to the DOGE.gov website, they have here the payments. So they explain a little bit of the past. So in the past, there were actually payments made without any description, like no description at all, like zero. Yeah, so that's now mandatory.
Yeah.
And here you can see all the payments by agency. They still say it's in a beta form, but you can actually see like here on the 6th of March, there was a recipient, that's Georgia State University. The agency who paid it is HHS. And the award description goes State Research Institution Foundation Laboratory. Well, it's kind of brief, but I think where it actually, like what I would like to see, if there's a website in the Netherlands where it says, hey, Kenny, you paid this last year. And if you drill it down to things where it went to these kind of things, you know, because a percentage of your money, maybe €1, goes to the roads, maybe 2, maybe 10. €5 went to education, you know, like.
But you want to see it on like a personal level in relation to the total amount spent.
So if I see, for example, that half of my money goes to foreign policies, I'll say, hey, but why is half of my tax money going to those kind of things? And you want to click on it and see like what's being paid, what's the counterparties, why did they do it?
There is a way of finding this out.
So sorry to interrupt you again. So also what they say here is that the person who approves a payment has to be mentioned in that payment. So if I'm Kenny Vaas and I'm working for the government and I give a grant, it says my name. So it brings accountability. So if I pay somebody to cut a tree for €50,000 and people will see it, that's the accountability. So I think that's where you want to go to.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the first start.
Yeah.
That's a really good start.
Yeah,
but I think we have a law.
Let's say if you have a DOGE. So let's say DOGE is becoming a more standardized thing into your government. So let's say you have now 200, 300, 500 people working, and they are working for all the sub-departments. So standard ruling, standard hygiene procedures, all sorts of standard stuff that needs to be there. But if you can, let's say you have like 500 of wizard auditors always working next to the departments itself.
They already have. The government has an internal audit agency.
Yeah. And Elon said right now the US government would not pass an audit.
I know.
This is quite shocking on itself, right?
Mm.
Yeah. So
to find this out, like we have since 1980, we have a very important statute in our Dutch legislation. It's called WOP, Wet Openbaarheid Bestuur. And you as a private citizen or a company, you can make a request on the
so it opened up that all of the people or all of the organizations in the Netherlands can apply to fulfill a certain job for
so in essence it's a government act that that if you have some questions or doubts about certain policies, you can send a message to the government based on this law, and they would need to play open book and give you, like full transparency on policy.
So we can basically already enforce it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's your point. Okay. But to bring it back to the DOGE.gov, I actually think Doge is one of the worst names we could have ever gotten. But that aside,
no, I think there's more meaning behind that. And I've been going to a rabbit hole about it, but actually, in Italy, in Phoenicia, they had a Doge. They had a Doge, and the Doge was like the CEO of the state, and he decided where the money went, etc. So it also has a reference to history, and
a Doge is like an elected duke. So like a duke is a hertog.
Yeah. So
So that's a really good story to know. But in my environment, where I see people linking it to is to crypto and to the meme coin.
Yeah,
and that's also how Elon a little bit portrays it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the fun, which I think is, if you want to be taken seriously, then don't. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, anyway, but he always uses humor and memes to explain.
I know, and we know, but 99.9% of the civilization does not. Anyways, I think that's also a different topic. So on the website itself, the next page is on the payments. So you can see the payments that are being made per agency, etc. Lacks a little bit of detail, in my opinion. And then you have spend, so you can see the spend per department, but you cannot click through on it, or you can just see the total expenses per department per year, and then compared 2019 to 2024. Then the next one is workforce, so you can actually see workforce, and you can select large independent agencies, etc. So you can actually click on what are the wages, how many offices are there, what's the head count. So it just makes it more transparent, so you can says it all, trace your tax dollars through bureaucracy, but it actually shows where it's going to.
Insane, actually. It's really good that they're doing this.
Yeah, and this one I liked as well. Yeah, so it shows laws per year that have been added, and also how many rules
and
per
checked
law.
Against the Constitution.
This is a number of agency rules created by unelected bureaucrats for each law passed by Congress in 24. So again, this is a number of agency rules created by unelected bureaucrats for each law passed by Congress.
Well, so they say we have, so for example, in 2024, or let's take 2023, there were 68 laws with 3,000 rules. So that's 44.3 rules per law.
Mm-hmm.
And here you can see where we've come from. So these are the words in the federal regulations. So we had around 78 million in 2010, and we now have 98 million, or 99.
So code of, what is that? Code of federal regulation.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
I think it's just their laws and regulations, right?
Yeah, like a code, a codex. It's that's the first word in...
So the Code of Federal Regulation is the codification of general and permanent rules published in the Federal Register by the executive departments and agencies of the United States of the federal government. Explain if I'm like a child what this actually means.
Explain it to Damien.
Plaatjes.
Okay, let's break this down.
The code is the
of Federal
lawbook,
Regulations is like a big rule book for the United States government. Imagine you're in a school and your teacher has rules for how things work in the classroom. Okay. Like when you can talk, where you can sit, or how you can turn in your homework. Damian, you don't know about those rules. The CFR is kind of like that, but it's for the whole country, not just the classroom. It's where all the rules are made by the government and are written down.
The total rules of the country are ballpark 100 million.
100 million rules, yeah.
100 million words.
Oh, yeah, 100 million words, yeah.
So that would be interesting if that would be cut to 20 million.
Or a few memes.
Yeah, if you mean.
Well, you can actually also...
Well, this is what Elon is talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, he's talking about this Gulliver who's been attached to the ground because all these rules.
Yeah.
And he also says a meme is like 1,000 words.
Yeah.
So to go back to your idea of the whole Doge, it's such a good meme.
And there's more to it than just Doge.
Exactly. But it already creates an image.
It's just one of the breadcrumbs that the mastermind is leaving behind.
Exactly.
I think it's a good time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I would encourage everybody to start digging in Doge themselves, and I will spend this weekend on Doge as well.
If I can finish off with some numbers, so if you would put 98 million words in a book, and you would use like Times New Roman, 12-point font size, etc., just the normal things, you have more than 356,000 pages.
That's insane.
And then I asked how thick is the book. So if we have like normal heights and stuff, so it would weigh over 17,000 pounds.
Wow.
And the book would be 35.6 thousand inches tall.
Equivalent to 2.9 feet. So that's
2,996.
Okay.
That's roughly a half a mile. So 0.6. So
that's 500 times a human.
So if you would put it in a book, it's like a kilometer high.
Sick.
In a normal book.
500,
just to put it into a perspective.
500 humans stacked together.
Yeah, but can you...
This is not manageable.
This will be my sort of second prediction that Doge is going to enable is right now you have government and you have a lot of services and businesses that are relying on the complexity of a government, right? So if it's about 1 kilometers high, nobody, of course, understands the whole scope of rules and regulation within their area or field. So you need actually very expensive lawyers and tax experts, etc., that you need to pay the lofty sums of money to make sense of all these kind of regulations. Yeah. And so, for example, the banking sector right now is so complex that the rules and regulations that are being utilized in the banking sector basically makes it impossible to compete with the giant firms, because the giant firms can spend like 500 million a year on just legal teams to just make sense of all the rules and regulation. If those jobs don't apply anymore because everything is simplified or understandable in memes, which I think is a fantastic idea. You get a whole less of those kind of spent in businesses.
Yeah, sure.
That is actually waste, right?
Of course it's waste.
And
because on the one hand, you have people creating laws and regulation, and on the other hand, you have people trying to check against those laws and regulations.
And the more laws you get, the more difficult it becomes, and the more lawyers and judicial employees trying to implement, or like how do you say that, the wet interpret the laws and regulations.
Yeah,
so it's stacking,
stacking complexity, and that will be it's reduced.
It will suffocate also innovation if you have a lot of rules. You know,
Definitely.
If you want to get things done, you have to have like all those rules and regulations, etc.
Point being FSD in Europe.
Yeah. So I think when you can get to the situation. So for example, Elon in his interview said like right now all the AI chips are being manufactured in Taiwan. But to normally get AI chips to manufacture in the US, it would take 5 to 10 years at least to make that happen.
Madness.
So probably there will also prioritize certain sectors that are crucial for a country to accelerate those kind of things. And I think that will be like the magic side effect of Doge in sort of the second wave of innovation. Yeah. I see Doge as an innovation, not as a...
I've learned yesterday how many chips are actually made in Taiwan of the total world production. Do you know?
It's like 95+%, right?
Yeah.
Billions and billions and billions.
Can you
of
imagine
chips.
when Taiwan gets into war with China?
Yeah, we have like a stop of chips, but also
We have what?
we
A
have
stop.
there's no chips anymore coming
Yeah,
in,
and
so
then
AI
what-
is
what
gonna be
happens
on
then?
hold. Yeah, AI is on hold.
But like everything
But-
is on hold.
but-
Car production, phone production.
But another one who makes the machines, for the
Chips.
chips.
ASML.
Yeah, which is Dutch. So yeah, on
So the
So
price.
we're not the dumbest four in the world. We are.
Well,
not that much, but
we are for particularly dumb individuals.
I think we are. But on the memes stuff, so can you enlighten me? Like, how do you look at memes being part of the rules and regulation? Like,
Well, the thing is, everybody knows the saying: a picture says more than a thousand words, right?
That's why the Chinese have that crazy alphabet.
well, it depends.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so that's just a saying we regularly use. I'm not sure if that's actually 1,000 words or so, but sometimes a meme can be very good at explaining a very complex situation.
Exactly.
Right? You have like one icon thing that basically makes you understand, like some memes that you can see are actually like 7-8 layers deep, you know.
Yeah,
You-
but
you
can you give me an example of a meme we can actually use?
Yeah, so
as
let me use an example meme, right? I'm not talking about regulation, but I think it's just a great idea to make your communication more effective. So we can put it up. That's a meme of dog 10,000 years ago. Can you look that up? It's an interesting one.
Who is it?
Dog?
Just Google dog 10,000 years ago.
I want to know like a dog, like not dog, but dog. Yeah.
Dog 10,000 meme.
Memo. I want to use the Bad Luck Brian meme.
Okay, yeah,
Let-
go
let's
ahead.
fir-
I'll search for it.
So if you just you do images. I need images because we're talking memes, right?
This,
Just continue.
Yeah.
I'll have a look.
So this meme, what the meme is saying is, that second picture.
This one.
No, the first picture.
This
First-
one. This
no,
one.
Yeah, that first one. This one. But this is a legendary.
my brain is going insane from this episode.
This is
man.
like a
I can't take
legendary
this
meme.
anymore.
Humans at the campfire. It's cold. I'm starving. Maybe I should ask for some scraps. What's the worst that can happen? And then 10,000 years later, you see that whole dog with his celebrative outfit on, staring in the camera like help, need to be helped. But this explains like evolution in a sort of very simplified thing, right? But if, for example, if you have a textbook of explaining a complex traffic situation, and you have a meme that sort of highlights the whole thing, and you can then go deeper explaining it. But it's a very fast way to learn how things evolve. Or
Then you would need to use that meme like with all the calculations, like trying to come up with stuff.
But it's just an idea. But it would be cool to innovate on being more effective in communication, so actually everybody can understand what you mean.
For me, it's still
if we would do this
far-fetched.
podcast in only memes, it would be like in 2 minutes
Definitely.
because the talking takes so long, you know.
Yeah.
But so I'm not fully grasping it. The only thing I can think of in the Netherlands, which might be the same, is you have like goed koopmansgebruik, I think it is. So translated to English, it's like good craftsmanship or good buyership or whatever. So it's actually being used in court, where the question is like, all right, is it fair and is it correct? What is done in the light of all the economic circumstances and of all the stakeholders? So I think it's a good one because on the one hand, it can be used quite broad, but it brings you to a certain state where like, all right, is this good stewardship or good craftsmanship or good market makership? So I think like that's the only thing I can think of which might be something that can be used. But I'm still not seeing like all the memes
It comes down to, let's say you right now have 10 million. 100 million words. You need 100 million words. If you would take Elon's approach, like, okay, what will be a sort of first principle thing that you need for government regulation and legislation, is that you want as much people as possible to understand what is actually in there, right? Mm-hmm. Or at least the things you're looking for. So what will be needed? It needs to be searchable, understandable. Then you talk about different languages people can have. So maybe you can, first of all, simplify the regulation and then have a clearer way of communicating it. So, for example, one of Warren Buffett's rules for making deals, right? It needs to fit on one page. Otherwise, the deal is too complex. You work in M&A, so you know how large those long form documents can become. But it's good to have certain rulings around that to be more effective in your communication.
Yeah. But then still, like, a meme gives so much room for interpretation, and not everyone shares the same interpretation. So, like, the argument that you were making about laws and reducing the need for lawyers doesn't add up if you're also making this argument.
Yeah. Well, I think we've stretched our big friend Florian. Are you still live?
Mr. Weave, can you take
Mr.
it?
Yeah, he's done.
Yeah. Let's cut the waste.
Let's cut the waste.
And cut the crap.
Cut the waste.
Cut the crap. Anything you want to bring out before we leave, Florian? Any
I'm done.
nice words?
We're done.
All right. On that note,
Wise
see you
words.
next week.
See you next week, Jen.
Till
Cheers.
next.